They kicked the dog right in front of her, and what she did next made the entire world watch. A silent girl, an act of unthinkable cruelty, and a single moment that captured the attention of millions. No one could have predicted that this burst of brutality would trigger a reaction that would change the lives of everyone involved forever. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. In the small town of Pedra Azul, Ana Clara was known for just one thing: her silence. Ever since the fire that had devoured her home and taken her parents 2 years earlier, not a single word had escaped her lips. The residents of the little Brazilian town had grown accustomed to the 11-year-old girl who walked with her head down along the cobblestone streets, always accompanied by her grandfather or her inseparable sketchbook. The trauma had sealed her voice shut, like a door locked without a key. Seu Raul, the grandfather who took her in, was a respected carpenter. With hands calloused from a lifetime of working with wood, he tried, without success, to carve a path back to his granddaughter's closed-off heart. At night, while Anna slept, he would study the drawings she produced. Dark landscapes, houses engulfed in flames, and figures without faces. The doctor said, "It's just a matter of time," he would repeat to himself, a mantra that was beginning to lose its meaning. Everything changed on a night a violent storm rattled the windows of the old wooden house. Anna awoke to a faint whimpering coming from the yard. Ignoring the downpour, she stepped out barefoot and found a drenched German shepherd, trembling beneath an old mango tree. The animal had a deep scar on its snout and a noticeable limp, but its amber eyes shone with an intensity Anna recognized instantly. "Thor," she wrote in the sketchbook she showed her grandfather the next morning, alongside a drawing of the dog. It was her first spontaneous communication in months. Seu Raul didn't have the heart to send the animal away, despite his own financial struggles. There was something in the connection between the girl and the dog that felt sacred, a mutual recognition of pain that needed no words. In the days that followed, Thor followed Anna like a protective shadow. He limped beside her on her walks to school, waited patiently at the gate, and escorted her back home. The townspeople noticed a subtle change in the girl's demeanor. There were no smiles yet, but her eyes no longer seemed so empty. Her sketchbook was now filled with drawings of Thor, some with timid splashes of color emerging from among the usual shades of gray. At night, when the nightmares came, it was the warmth of the dog's body at the foot of her bed that calmed her. Thor seemed to understand her silence perfectly, as if they both spoke a secret language of glances and gentle gestures. Seu Raul watched, hopeful, this unlikely friendship between two wounded souls who, together, seemed to be finding a path to healing that no medicine or therapy had ever provided. Anna's drawings began to change. Where once there were only dark lines and angular shapes, soft contours of leafy trees and birds in mid-flight now appeared. Most surprising of all were the smiles, small, shy arcs that began to appear on the faces she drew. And on every page, like a personal signature, was Thor, with his pointed ears and curled tail. The dog was not just her companion in life. He had become a constant presence in her artistic universe. So Raoul observed this transformation with a mix of hope and caution. He would sometimes pause at Anna's bedroom door, watching her bent over her desk with Thor lying faithfully at her feet. He wanted to say something, to comment on how colorful her drawings had become, to ask about the stories behind her sketches, but the words would die in his throat. What if a clumsy comment undid all her progress? What if Anna retreated back into her shell at the slightest sign of intrusion? And so he would simply smile, a silent observer, and continue down the hall. In their small town, news traveled like water. Soon everyone was talking about the quiet girl who now walked the streets with a lanky dog. Donna Carmen, from the bakery, would smile when they passed and always set aside a piece of bread for Thor. Old Professor Antonio would wave from his window when the pair crossed his street. For many, their friendship was a small, daily miracle, something to be celebrated with discreet smiles and gentle nods. But where affection blossomed, prejudice also found fertile ground. In the central plaza, some mothers would pull their children away when Anna and Thor approached. "That dog must have diseases," they would whisper, just loud enough to be heard. At the market, the owner would scowl at the sight of Thor waiting patiently by the entrance. "That animal isn't normal," he'd comment to his customers, "and neither is the girl." The cruel words circulated like counterfeit coins, passed from hand to hand, tainting the purity of their bond. Anna felt the stares, the whispers, the pulling away. Her body would stiffen and her eyes would fall to the ground, a clear sign that the words struck her like invisible stones. But whenever Thor nudged her hand with his snout, she seemed to find the strength to keep walking, to ignore the world that couldn't understand the simple beauty of a friendship between a silent girl and an imperfect dog. Everything changed on a sunny Sunday afternoon. Anna was walking with Thor through the main square, where families were enjoying the perfect weather. The dog was limping slightly, but he seemed happy, wagging his tail as children came up to pet him. Anna found herself smiling, feeling for the first time in weeks that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. That's when she saw the group approaching from the corner of her eye. There were 5 of them, teenagers well known throughout the town. Leading them was Kaio, 17 years old, with bleached hair and a worn leather jacket. As the son of the junkyard owner, he carried the arrogance of someone who had never faced a consequence in his life. The others followed him like shadows, laughing at the same jokes, sharing cigarettes, and intimidating anyone who crossed their path. Anna pulled Thor closer, trying to change her route, but it was too late. "Well, look what we have here," Kaio shouted, drawing laughter from his friends. "The crazy dog lady and her 3-legged mutt." Anna kept her eyes fixed on the ground, her hand tightening on Thor's leash. "He wouldn't even be good for spare parts at my dad's junkyard," he continued, stepping closer. People around them began to notice the tension, but no one intervened. Anna tried to circle around the group, but Kaio deliberately blocked her way. "Please, we just want to pass," Anna murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Thor, sensing her fear, shrank against her legs. And then it happened. With a swift, brutal motion, Kaio kicked his heavy boot into Thor's side. The sickening thud was followed by a sharp yelp of pain that cut through the air of the plaza like a razor. Time seemed to freeze. Thor's cry echoed, silencing conversations and laughter. Children stopped playing. Adults turned, their mouths agape. Anna dropped to her knees beside her injured friend, who was trembling and whimpering softly. Her hands shook as she ran them over his body, feeling for broken bones. Tears streamed down her face as Thor licked her hand, as if trying to comfort her, even though he was the one who was hurt. Inside her, something shattered and was reforged in the very same instant. The fear gave way to an icy fury she had never felt before. She lifted her eyes to Kaio, who was still laughing with his friends, and something in her gaze made his smile waver. Anna didn't know it then, but that single second of eye contact would change not only her life, but the life of her entire community. What began with an act of cruelty in a sun-drenched plaza would set in motion events that no one could ever have foreseen. The fury that coursed through Ana was like an electric current, jolting awake every cell that had lain dormant since the fire. For years, she had curled up inside her own pain, as if she could disappear within it. But now, seeing Thor kicked and helpless, something primal and powerful rose from deep within her. It wasn't just for the dog. It was for everything that had been taken from her, for every time she had felt powerless. Her eyes locked with Kaio's. The young man who had seemed so large and menacing just moments before now looked confused by the transformation he was witnessing. The silence Anna had once worn as a shield had become something sharp, honed to a razor's edge. Without thinking, Anna rose to her feet. Her legs trembled, not from fear, but from an energy she could no longer contain. The world around her seemed to slow down as she took 2 steps forward. The people in the plaza, who had previously pretended not to see, now found they couldn't look away. Never touch him again. Her voice came out low, almost a whisper, yet it carried an authority that Anna never knew she possessed. Each word fell like a thunderclap in the silent plaza. There was no need for shouts or threats. The sheer intensity of her presence was enough. Kaio took a step back, then another. His once dominant eyes now avoided hers. Thor, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, dragged himself closer to Anna, as if recognizing her as his protector. The crowd, who seconds before had been silent spectators, began to murmur. An elderly woman stepped forward and stood beside Anna. Then a teenage girl, then a man in a suit. It was as if her courage had broken some invisible spell that had held them all paralyzed. Kaio glanced around, realizing the game had changed. His face shifted between anger and embarrassment. He opened his mouth to say something, but the words died before they could form. With one last look of contempt, he turned his back and walked away, his pace quickening with every step. Anna felt her legs start to give way. The adrenaline that had sustained her was beginning to fade, but something inside her had changed. A flame that had been extinguished long ago was now crackling back to life. She knelt and stroked Thor, who licked her hand in response. "Are you all right?" the elderly woman asked, placing a hand on her shoulder. Anna nodded, surprised to realize that, for the first time in a very long time, it wasn't a lie. The video started circulating in local message groups before Anna had even made it home with Thor. A woman passing through the park had recorded everything, from the moment the boys surrounded them to the instant Anna, with a determined expression, confronted the aggressor. The footage perfectly captured the moment when the girl, known to everyone as the girl who never spoke, opened her mouth and let her voice out for the first time in years. "Oh my God, did you see this? Anna spoke," a classmate wrote, sharing the video. Within hours, the recording had crossed the town's borders and reached the country's main social media networks. The views skyrocketed: 50,000, 200,000, a million. "Mute girl speaks for first time to defend stray dog," declared the headlines that multiplied across news sites. Emotional comments poured in from everywhere. "I cried watching this. This girl is a hero." Her love for an animal broke her silence. While the digital buzz grew, Anna remained oblivious to her sudden fame. Sitting on the floor of her room, she could only think about Thor. The dog was lying on an old cushion, his paw bandaged after an emergency visit to the vet that her grandfather, still stunned by the day's events, had arranged. Anna gently stroked the animal's head, letting silent tears run down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered, so softly she could barely hear her own voice. She should have been faster. Thor licked her hand, as if to say that it was all right, that it wasn't her fault. Anna hugged the dog carefully, feeling the comforting warmth of his body. Outside that room, her name was being shared, her story told and retold. Teachers who had tried for years to get her to speak were now being interviewed. Neighbors who had barely noticed her now claimed to know her well. I always knew there was something special about her, they'd say. Psychologists were invited onto television shows to explain selective mutism and how intense emotion could shatter psychological barriers. Animal rights activists celebrated her act as a symbol of a new, more compassionate generation. But in that moment, holding Thor, Anna had no idea that her quiet courage had become a roar that was echoing across the country, inspiring thousands of people to find their own voices. Anna and Thor woke up the next morning as local celebrities. Still sleepy, she heard the doorbell ringing insistently. So Raoul opened it to find 3 reporters from the city newspaper, microphones in hand, and a camera pointed into the house. "Can we speak with the girl who stood up to those boys to save the dog?" a woman in a red blazer asked. Anna peeked from down the hall. Startled by the commotion, Thor stood beside her, barking suspiciously at the strangers. "The story is all over town," another reporter explained. "People are calling her the little heroine of the Esperanza neighborhood." So Raoul looked at his granddaughter, silently asking for her permission. Anna shrugged. She was shy, but she agreed to talk. She didn't understand why so many people were interested in what she had done. To her, protecting Thor was simply the right thing to do, not something extraordinary that deserved all this attention. Throughout the day, a parade of people appeared at their door. Neighbors who had barely offered a nod before now arrived with cakes and cookies. The telephone rang incessantly. A local Facebook page had shared a witness's account, and the comments multiplied into the thousands. "That girl has more courage than most adults," one read. "We need more people like her in the world," declared another. Anna could only offer a small smile, feeling out of place amidst the praise. That night, when the house finally fell silent, Anna sat at her desk and opened her sketchbook. Her fingers moved with a newfound urgency across the paper, as if she needed to process everything that was happening through graphite and ink. This time, she didn't draw a wounded Thor or the cruel boys. She drew herself, standing tall before a crowd of featureless faces. In the drawing, she looked bigger, stronger than she really was. Thor stood at her side, no longer a battered dog, but a powerful companion, both of them facing the world. Her grandfather, Raoul, watched her from the doorway, unnoticed. "You're not enjoying all this attention, are you?" he finally asked. Anna shook her head. "I just wanted to protect Thor, Grandpa. I didn't do anything special." The old man smiled, his eyes filled with pride. "Sometimes, Anna, the simplest things we do are the ones that inspire people the most." She looked at her drawing again, beginning to understand that perhaps her small act of courage could mean something bigger to others. The media storm was a hurricane, and her father watched with concern as Anna navigated it with a serenity he never would have expected from his shy daughter. "Honey, you don't have to take all these calls," he'd say, trying to screen the endless requests for interviews. Anna would just smile, adjusting her glasses with that gesture she always made when she was determined. "Dad," she said, her voice quiet but firm, "for the first time in my life, people are listening. I'm not going to hide now." The notice from the school arrived on a Thursday. Summons to an extraordinary meeting regarding the disturbance to the school environment caused by the recent incident. The bureaucratic language barely concealed the true issue at hand. When the news spread among the other parents, many called her father to express their support. "They can't punish Anna for defending an animal," said Mrs. Marta, the mother of a classmate. "We'll all be at the meeting." On the morning of the meeting, the schoolyard was full. Parents, students, and even people with no children at the school waited outside. Anna arrived with Thor on his special leash, his paws still bandaged, a slight limp in his gait. The dog, despite his pain, stayed close by her side, as if he understood the gravity of the moment. Inside the principal's office, Kaio sat next to his father, a man in an impeccable suit with a severe expression. "My son has been the victim of cyberbullying ever since this girl decided to put on her little show," Mr. Mendez declared, adjusting his expensive tie. "We demand immediate disciplinary action." Principal Solange looked from one side of the table to the other, visibly uncomfortable. "Anna, do you understand that exposing fellow students on social media violates our policies?" It was then that something unexpected happened. Anna, who always shrank from confrontation, lifted her gaze. Her voice, normally a whisper, came out clear and steady. "I have great respect for this school, Principal, but what violates basic principles is to attack a defenseless creature and then try to silence the person who reveals the truth." She paused, stroking Thor, who remained seated beside her like a silent guardian. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because I believe we need to stand up to what's wrong, even when it's hard." The silence that followed was broken by a soft bark from Thor, as if he were endorsing every word his owner had said. Kaio, for the first time since the incident, seemed unable to hold his arrogant gaze, staring down at the table in front of him. After 20 minutes of private deliberation by the school board, the decision surprised everyone. Principal Solange announced that Anna would not be punished. Instead, in a move unprecedented in the school's history, they recommended that Kaio participate in a community project at the local animal shelter. "We believe this is a learning opportunity for everyone," the principal explained, looking directly at Kaio's father, who looked indignant but remained silent. As Anna left the room, she was met by her friends, who wrapped her in a tight hug. Thor wagged his tail, sensing that something important had happened. What Anna didn't know was that her small victory was just the beginning of a much bigger change, not only in her school, but in the entire community. But victory came with a price. On a gray Monday morning, Anna arrived at school to see the entrance wall covered in jagged, red, spray-painted letters. "Mute freak." The words hung there, enormous and cruel for everyone to see. A few students pointed and whispered as she walked past. Grandpa Raoul, who also worked as the school's kind-hearted janitor, approached her, his face flushed with indignation. "I'll clean this up right now, my girl. Don't you worry. I'm going to find out who did this," he said, gesturing furiously with his broom. Anna just stared at the graffiti for a few seconds, feeling the weight of the words trying to seep into her chest. But then, to her grandfather's surprise, she simply shrugged, took a deep breath, and walked on as if it were just another obstacle in her path. It was as if she already understood, even at her young age, that courage attracts admiration as much as it does envy and misunderstanding. That afternoon in art class, Anna started something new. Instead of the Thor everyone knew, the brave dog who had survived abuse, she drew him with majestic wings that unfurled like a protective canopy. And under those wings were not just her, but other creatures. A lame cat, birds with broken wings, and even small children, some in wheelchairs, others on crutches, all smiling under the protection of the winged dog. Her teacher, Ms. Denise, looked over her shoulder at the drawing and was silent for a moment. "What does this mean, Anna?" she finally asked, her voice gentle. Anna looked up from the paper and, using her communication notebook, slowly wrote, "Thor protects those who need it, like I did, like others do." In the days that followed, Anna created more drawings. In each one, Thor appeared with his wings, protecting abandoned animals from a storm, warding off bullies from a lonely child in the park, guiding a blind man across a busy street. It was as if, through her art, Anna was building an alternate universe, a place where no one had to be afraid, where the weak found a guardian, where being different was not a reason for scorn. The first letter arrived as a surprise. It was a simple envelope, addressed in a child's handwriting. Inside was a colorful drawing of a little girl next to a dog, signed by Juliana, age 9. The message read, "I have trouble talking at school too. Thank you for showing me I can be strong." In the following days, more letters appeared. 2, then 5, soon a dozen a day. Grandpa Raoul, who now visited her almost every day, brought a cardboard box to organize the mail. "Look at this, you've become a celebrity," he joked as he opened another envelope. There were letters from all walks of life. A 78-year-old man who had lost his Labrador of 15 years and found comfort in her story. A woman who had become mute for months after surviving domestic violence. Children with stutters who felt seen. Anna spent hours reading each message, sometimes with tears in her eyes. Even without words, she felt a deep connection to these people. That's when she had an idea. She took out her colored pencils and began to draw personalized replies. For Juliana, she drew a portrait of the girl with butterfly wings, symbolizing transformation. For the elderly man, she drew his dog running free in a sunlit field. Her grandfather offered to help with the addresses and stamps. "You don't need words to touch people's hearts," he remarked, watching her draw with intense dedication. "Sometimes, a single gesture is worth 1,000 speeches." Anna's replies caused an even greater stir. People shared her drawings on social media, marveling at the sensitivity of a young woman who, without using her voice, could understand exactly what they needed to hear. One mother wrote that Anna's drawing was now framed in her daughter's room, giving her the strength to face her speech therapy sessions. Over time, Anna developed her own visual language. Letters about loss received drawings of birds flying toward the dawn. Stories of bullying were answered with illustrations of small trees growing strong among rocks. Accounts of overcoming hardship were met with images of doors opening onto colorful landscapes. Her silence, once a prison, had become a bridge to other souls wounded by the world. One day, while sorting the mail, an envelope with no return address caught her eye. As she opened it, her hands trembled slightly. It was a handwritten letter, the script firm and precise. "Dear Anna," it began, "my name is Roberto. I'm a former Air Force veteran, and for the last 5 years, I've been fighting the invisible demons I brought home with me." The letter continued with words that made her heart ache. Roberto described how trauma had silenced him, how he had isolated himself from his family, unable to explain what he was feeling. "Then I saw your story," he wrote. "I saw how you defended that dog when no one else would. Your courage gave me the will to try again." Attached to the letter was a photograph of a German shepherd in a service vest, sitting obediently beside Roberto. "This is Bravo. the letter explained. My PTSD service dog. After seeing what you did, I finally admitted I needed help. Anna traced the photograph with her finger, noticing a light in the man's eyes that she recognized as newfound hope. Sitting at her kitchen table, Anna let the tears fall freely. They weren't tears of sadness, but of an emotion she couldn't name. How could she have known that her one act, born of a desperate moment, would cross invisible borders to touch a soul so far away? That night, Anna did something she hadn't done since she was a little girl. She picked up her old sketchbook and a pencil. For years, her drawings had been of lonely figures and empty landscapes. But this time, as the pencil touched the paper, something different emerged. Line by line, Anna drew herself, not the withdrawn girl with downcast eyes, but a version of herself with her head held high and a genuine smile. Beside her, she drew Thor, and surrounding them, she drew small figures representing all the people whose lives she had touched. For the first time in a long time, Anna could see herself beyond the pain. She could see the impact one small, brave action could have on the world. During a sleepless night, Anna created the blog, Thor's Voice, feeling the need to transform her journey into something larger than herself. With a simple layout and a drawing of Thor's nose as the logo, the blog began quietly. On the first day, it had only 3 visitors: her, her father, and probably an internet bot. In the first few weeks, Anna posted her watercolor drawings of Thor alongside short texts about their daily lives. Then, she began sharing the stories that arrived in her email. A 72-year-old man who adopted a blind dog, a student suffering from bullying who found comfort in a neighbor's pet, a homeless man who shared what little he had with his loyal companion. We have all been invisible at some point, Anna wrote in the blog's description. Slowly, the comments began to appear, timid at first, then more frequent, each one a small voice finding its place in the chorus. A quiet community began to form around those stories, made up of real people who saw reflections of their own lives in them. It wasn't a massive following, but genuine souls sharing their experiences. By the time her blog reached 6 months, Anna received her first message from a teacher who had used one of her stories in class. Soon after, invitations poured in for small local events, where Anna brought Thor, his red bandana tied proudly around his neck. The once frightened dog now walked with confidence among strangers who knew him from the blog. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, the local fire department surprised Anna by presenting Thor with an honorary badge as an inspiring mascot. It all started when a firefighter recognized him from a post about resilience. The photo of Thor wearing the badge on his collar became the blog's most shared image. Even the bakery owned by Seu Antonio, the same one where Anna used to buy bread before all this began, baked a special bone-shaped cake to celebrate Thor's 1-year adoption anniversary. Regular customers joined in the impromptu sidewalk gathering, turning it into a heartfelt occasion. Thor's troubled past of abuse and abandonment slowly faded, replaced by new, joyful memories. People no longer saw him as the dog who had been kicked. He had become a symbol of overcoming adversity. Neighborhood children begged to walk him, elderly folks stopped to pet his head, and even the mailman, who usually feared dogs, saved treats just for Thor. Unbeknownst to Anna, the blog she started to heal her own wounds was mending those of many others. Anna always knew not everyone would understand her journey. As she stroked Thor's head, she overheard whispers in the supermarket aisle. "She's just seeking attention," one woman said to another, not realizing Anna was in line behind them. With all the problems in the world, she makes such a fuss over a dog. Comments like these surfaced now and then, but Anna had learned to let them go. Thor, with his quiet loyalty, taught her a valuable lesson. Others' judgments often reveal more about them than the truth. On a perfect Thursday morning, the day dawned ideal for a hike. Anna packed a small backpack with water, treats for Thor, and her phone. The lake trail was her favorite escape, where troubles seemed to shrink against the vastness of nature. Thor, fully recovered, bounded ahead, occasionally glancing back to ensure she followed. They were nearly at the overlook when Anna noticed something odd. The clear blue sky now had an orange hue on the horizon. Thor halted abruptly, his ears perked in alert. Then came the smell, thick, ominous smoke. It must be a controlled burn, Anna thought, trying to quell her rising anxiety. But the wind shifted, turning the distant smudge into an advancing red curtain through the forest. Thor barked sharply, a sound Anna had never heard before, his instincts warning of danger long before she grasped it. The wildfire, fueled by strong winds and dry summer brush, raced toward them. Anna pulled out her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. They were at least 4 kilometers from the trailhead, and the flames blocked their way back. Thor tugged at her pant leg with his teeth, pointing toward a side path she hadn't noticed. "Where to, Thor?" she asked, her voice trembling. He barked again and dashed a few meters ahead. Hesitating only a second, Anna followed, remembering the lessons of trust she'd learned. The sky turned a deep red, pressing down on them as the air grew harder to breathe. She covered Thor's snout with a damp cloth and tied one around her own face. Smoke danced like a predator through the trees, accompanied by the crackling of burning wood. Thor led the way down an unfamiliar route, and Anna could only hope he knew where they were going. Life was testing them again, in a way no viral video could fix. The smoke thickened as the fire devoured the dry vegetation. Anna ran, her heart pounding, the hot air scorching her lungs with every gasp. Thor stayed by her side, his golden fur streaked with soot. Suddenly, her right foot slipped on a rock hidden under dry leaves. She tumbled forward, pain shooting through her ankle as it caught under a heavy fallen branch. Desperate, Anna tried to free herself, but the branch was too heavy. "Help! Someone help!" she cried, her voice hoarse, lost amid the roaring flames. The heat intensified. Thor barked frantically, not his usual joyful sound, but a desperate plea. She attempted to shove the branch away, her nails breaking against the rough bark, sweat and tears mixing on her face. "Go, Thor, run!" she urged, but he refused, planting himself beside her, barking louder as if challenging the fire itself. Meanwhile, Sir Raoul, coordinating the volunteer team, realized Anna hadn't returned on time. A knot of worry hit him, and he dropped his tools, racing along the main trail. "Anna! Anna!" he called, eyes stinging from the smoke. Amid the blaze's roar and cracking trees, he heard Thor's persistent barks. Recognizing the sound, he veered toward it. When he found them, the sight broke his heart. Anna, exhausted and covered in ash, struggling to escape, with Thor at her side. His paws burned but unyielding. "Hold on tight!" Sir Raoul shouted, rushing over. With adrenaline-fueled strength, he lifted the branch enough for Anna to pull her leg free. He scooped her up, and Thor limped after them, determined, as they made their way back. "He didn't leave my side for a second," Anna murmured through tears, stroking the dog's head as they fled the flames. In the small hospital room, Anna couldn't let go of Thor's paw, even as the nurse came to change her bandages. The two shared an improvised space, a special exception granted by the director after hearing their story. "I need to check your stitches, ma'am," the nurse said gently, while Anna kept caressing Thor's golden fur on the adapted gurney beside her. Reluctantly, she released his paw, and he let out a soft whine, protesting the separation. They had forged an even deeper bond through their shared trauma. "You stayed. You saved me," Anna repeated like a mantra, watching as the vet tended to Thor's 3 broken ribs and deep flank wound, assuring full recovery. When the nurse finished examining Anna's bruises and arm cut, Thor lifted his head, wagging his tail slowly despite the pain, his brown eyes saying, "I'll always stay." On the room's TV, a reporter spoke energetically outside the hospital, showing clips of Anna and Thor from happier days, mixed with footage of the fire. For once, Anna felt no overwhelming anxiety about the publicity. Something fundamental had shifted within her. "Look, Thor, we're famous again," she said, with a weak smile, turning up the volume. The story highlighted Thor's courage, even after his own brutal past, as he defended Anna from an attacker in a shaky witness video. Social media buzzed with #HeroOnPause, and animal rights groups used it to push for stricter abuse laws. Anna turned off the TV and gripped Thor's paw once more. "I don't care about the fame this time," she whispered to him, his devoted gaze meeting hers. "What matters is we survived, together." Thor responded with a soft bark, as if understanding every word. Through the window, the afternoon sun cast a golden ray over them, illuminating the start of their shared recovery, and a life Anna knew would never be the same. During her recovery, Anna was amazed by the flood of letters and drawings from children across the country. Many sent photos of their own dogs, sharing how her story had touched them. Then came the invitation. A publisher wanted to include her tale in a children's book about courage. The twist? It would be in her own words, unfiltered. "We want your authentic voice, Domon," the editor explained over the phone, "exactly as you lived it." Anna accepted immediately, a tingle in her hands as she thought of the title, "The Day the Sky Caught Fire and My Dog Didn't Run." For weeks, Anna worked on her manuscript, laughing and wiping away stubborn tears. Her mother offered help, but Anna declined. "I need to do this alone," she said. When she submitted it, she felt a weight lift from her chest. The illustrator captured Thor perfectly. The dark patch around his left eye, the way his tail hooked at the end. The book launch at the municipal library arrived under a cloudless blue sky. Anna wore her favorite dress and tied a red bandana around Thor's neck, matching the cover. Stepping into the hall, she paused, surprised by the crowd. Children on colorful cushions, parents squeezed into undersized chairs, and even some firefighters from the rescue. The librarian introduced her warmly, and it was Anna's turn. She stepped onto the small stage, Thor trotting faithfully beside her, opened the book to the marked page and began reading. Her voice grew stronger with each word, free of the fear that had once shaken her. "In that moment," she read, looking directly at the audience, "I learned that being brave doesn't mean having no fear. It means doing what's right, even when you're terrified." Thor sat perfectly at her side, as if sensing the importance. When she finished, a brief silence hung in the air before the room erupted in applause. Anna smiled, petting Thor's head. They had come so far together, and now their story belonged to the world. Reading the final chapter of Anna's book swept through the room like a wave, stirring raw emotions. Strangers shared tears openly. A gray-haired woman in the third row sobbed, while a young man with glasses wiped his eyes discreetly. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with unspoken feelings. Anna glanced at her grandfather in the front row. So Raoul, a man of few words and quiet strength, had teary eyes and a rare smile. Throughout her life, he had been the family's rock. But now, watching his granddaughter share her story of triumph, he couldn't hide his pride. Their eyes met, and Anna knew that smile meant more than approval. It was recognition that she had broken free from her past. After the autograph session, as Anna packed up, a hand touched her shoulder. It was a teenager with colorful hair and determined eyes. "Your story gave me the courage to share mine," the girl said, clutching a copy of the book. "I never thought anyone would understand." In that instant, Anna realized her tale of pain and redemption was one of many. What made it special wasn't its uniqueness, but how it echoed in others' lives. Everyone carried their own battles, their own Thors to save. As for Thor, the brindle Labrador rested peacefully at Anna's feet, accepting occasional pets from passers-by. No one seeing him now so serene and confident would imagine he was once the scared, rejected puppy Anna had found that fateful day. Thor was no longer just a rescued dog. He was a beacon of hope. He had become living proof of how love can transform wounds into strength. As they walked home under the starry sky of Porto Alegre, Anna reflected on how her single, impulsive decision to defend a mistreated dog had triggered a series of events that changed not only her life, but the lives of so many others. Thor trotted faithfully by her side. He was no longer just a rescued animal, but a companion who had taught her the true meaning of loyalty and courage. As winter settled in, the blog, Voices of Silence, blossomed like an unlikely digital garden. Anna spent hours each night answering messages that poured in from every corner of the country. Timid children shared stories of raising their hands in class for the very first time. Teenagers described how they had stood up to bullies in the school hallways. Adults confessed to long-held fears they had finally managed to overcome. A 9-year-old girl from Florianopolis, Julia, started her own blog called Whiskers Speak after reading about Max. She posted daily photos of her therapy cat, Romeo, who helped her cope with anxiety attacks following a car accident. "My cat doesn't need words to understand me," she wrote in a post that Anna saved as a favorite. In Manaus, a 12-year-old boy named Pedro, who was relentlessly bullied for his stutter, began publishing comic strips about a superhero who turned words into shields. He sent every single one to Anna, who printed them out and taped them to her bedroom walls. "I used to think my silence was a prison," Anna wrote in an update that was shared over 20,000 times. "Now, I understand it can be a bridge. Sometimes, when we stop talking, we truly begin to listen." The blog transformed into a community. Psychologists offered free online consultations. Teachers shared techniques for including students with different needs. Veterinarians posted about the importance of animals in emotional development. Dona Claudia, the neighbor who had lent Anna her computer, now managed a group of volunteers who helped answer messages. Carlos and his friends created a moderation system to filter out negative comments. Anna discovered that her silence, once seen as a weakness, was now her greatest strength. Each message she answered was an invisible thread connecting her to someone who, like her, was searching for the courage to face their fears. One particularly cold night, as Max lay curled at her feet, Anna received an email from a 72-year-old woman in the countryside of Minas Gerais. "I've spent my whole life in silence," the message read. After reading your blog, I spoke to my daughter about things I had kept inside for decades. Thank you for showing me that it's never too late to find your voice. Anna smiled at the screen. Her silence, which had once isolated her, now built bridges between strangers. What had begun as a silent scream of protest had turned into a chorus of voices, each one making the other stronger. One afternoon, as the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of orange and rose, Anna sat beside her grandfather on the old wooden garden bench. Thor rested at her feet, his head on her legs, his eyes half closed in contentment. The dog seemed to have completely forgotten the traumas of his past, as if this single moment of peace was all that mattered in the world. "Grandpa," Anna began, stroking Thor's soft ears, "do you think he understands everything that happened? All that chaos, the videos, the people recognizing me on the street?" Sio Raoul watched his four-legged grandson for a moment, a serene smile spreading across his wrinkled face. The last few months had been a roller coaster for all of them, but especially for Anna. "Oh, he understands," the old man replied with the wisdom only years can bring. "But he only cares about you." Anna felt a lump form in her throat. It was true. While the entire world discussed the video, debated animal protection laws, and turned her story into headlines, Thor had remained the same. Loyal, loving, present. To him, Anna wasn't a viral hero or a symbol. She was simply his favorite person in the world. She hugged the dog, burying her face in his soft fur, which smelled of dog shampoo and a faint hint of garden soil. Thor licked her chin, making her laugh through tears she hadn't realized she was shedding. "You know, Grandpa, I think I've learned more from him than from anyone else," she confessed. "When it all happened, I just reacted. I didn't think about the consequences, the cameras, any of it. It was pure instinct." "Just like his," Seo Raoul agreed, gesturing toward Thor. Anna nodded, watching the golden reflection of the setting sun on the lake's surface. Beside Thor, she understood that sometimes the greatest strength is born from what we cannot say with words. Animals didn't need elaborate speeches or justifications. They simply loved, protected, forgave. And perhaps that was the most important lesson of all. Even after the fire, after the pain and injustice, it was possible to rebuild. Thor was living proof. His body bore scars, but his spirit remained whole, capable of trusting again. "True love needs no explanation, does it?" Anna murmured, more to herself than to her grandfather. Sio Raoul smiled, watching his granddaughter and the dog against the darkening sky. "Exactly, my dear. Exactly." Looking back, Anna hardly recognized the person she used to be. The mute girl, they had called her at school. Now she had a voice that echoed far beyond words. She no longer needed to shout to be heard. Her determination spoke for itself. Thor, lying beside her with his head in her lap, looked up at her with that unconditional devotion only animals can show. The scars on his body had faded beneath a shiny coat of fur, but Anna knew they were still there, just like hers, invisible to the eye, but present in memory. The park where it all happened now had a sign with a drawing of a dog and the words, "Respect is not demanded, it is earned." It had been the mayor's idea after their story went viral. Anna smiled, remembering her mother's disbelief as she watched the report on national television. "My daughter, the defender," she had said with tears in her eyes, finally understanding what Anna had been trying to explain for years. The school had changed too. The Animal Cruelty Awareness Program, which had started as Anna's small initiative, was now part of the official curriculum. Even Ricardo, who once led the taunts, had become an advocate for the cause, volunteering at the shelter on weekends. People can change, Anna thought, when faced with the truth so rawly. Her phone vibrated with a message from Julia. "Are we ready for the walk tomorrow?" Anna smiled. The annual Pause for Peace event would bring hundreds of people and their pets together on the city streets. From one video that sparked outrage, a movement had been born, now spreading to other cities across the country. Thor lifted his head, as if he knew she was thinking of him. Anna stroked his ears, remembering that fateful day. The pain she had felt watching him being hurt had transformed into the strength that changed everything. She hadn't just fought for Thor. She had fought for herself, for her voice, for her right to be heard. "You know, Thor," she whispered, "they thought they were just kicking a dog, but they ended up awakening something so much bigger." The animal licked her hand, as if he understood perfectly. And maybe he did. The city had changed. The people had changed. But the greatest transformation had happened within her. Anna finally felt heard, respected, and above all, whole. And it was all thanks to the dog who never left her side, even when everything seemed lost. Thor wasn't just her loyal companion. He was the living proof that loyalty is the greatest medicine for the deepest wounds, and that sometimes heroes have four paws.